What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and some more Birthright coverage for you today. So we're continuing on with our review of the Brecht realms here and kind of wrapping up things in the Western Reaches. So we're going to start here on covering the other domains, or what that really means is the non-political domains. So the major temple that they let you focus on here, if you want to play it, is Sera's Perfect Symmetry, and we've encountered that across some of the domains that we've reviewed so far. So as they mention here, religion in the Western Reaches crosses many borders and even racial lines. One of the most influential ones here, Sera's Perfect Symmetry, has nevertheless experienced some decline in recent years. Still, it continues as the largest organized religion on this side of the Great Bay. So it's considered neutral good and recommended for play, so that means you can run this as a campaign domain. Now, at one time it mentions, and a big part of this particular temple is really maybe, I think, as a campaign focus, is kind of recapturing former glory versus, and former influence versus some of the newer religions that have muscled in. So at one time, Sera's influence spread throughout the Brecht lands, but over the past few generations, other religions have pushed supposedly outdated doctrines out of the more civilized realms. Still, in the Western Reaches, where religion and trade must work hand in hand to survive, the domain or the dominion remains strong. And as you can see here, you have quite a few holdings, I think about a dozen or so. Now, the highest level one here is there's a single 4 in there in Two Giants Tread, and a lot of 3s, but definitely also a lot of 1s and 2s, so definitely room for expansion and growth on those. So as you can see, even just on the first one here, Blackruff is a level 5 province. You only control level 3 in there, so there's just plenty of room for increasing and regaining influence. Now, you have some good resources to start with. So Regency is generated accumulated 30 and 50, so plenty of spending power right there, and also 25 gold in the treasury. So that's, again, more than a lot of realms, political realms that you saw, especially when we were reviewing Anawirian realms. Now, some of these Brecht realms we've seen, of course, they start with just an insane amount of gold, and here you kind of have that still with your temple. So much of the treasuries, the temple's treasury does come from the private hoard of its regent, which is, again, this priest here, Darren Volcairn, level 7. And again, part of the issue with the domain itself is the fact that he just doesn't focus on running the church. He'd rather be off adventuring. So that does create some interesting ways to maybe start the campaign, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So he was granted the leadership of Sera's temples in the Western Reaches after the assassination death of his predecessor. So that could be an interesting one to also delve into how that happened and or why. Now, unfortunately, Darren never felt ready to give up his life of wandering and adventuring and preaching Sera's word to the uneducated masses in exchange for the responsibilities of temple maintenance and political maneuvering. Many of his old adventuring comments hang around Owlbrunn, ready to coax him away on any fool quest they hear about, and he allows himself to be coaxed quite often. So as a result, the already shrinking influence of Sera's temples in the politics of the Western Reaches threatens to disappear completely. So again, it could be a major campaign hook and focus there. Perhaps also, again, tracking down who the previous leader of the temple was and why they were assassinated. So that could be fun. But then also, really, if you're going to play as Volcairn, something has to, I think, trigger to where you realize you need to take control of the temple, or maybe even just give it up altogether and then go off adventuring. So that would be a definite departure, but you got some options there. Now, a quick description here. When the Brechts first settled the Western Reaches and began prospecting and mining in the high mountains, they did so primarily as individuals and small groups. Quarrels over claims and feuds over food and supplies imported from the south led to entire settlements being wiped out by their neighbors. When the religion of Sera, the Lady of Fortune and Goddess of Wealth, came to the region, it helped to stop all of that. Now, the careful arbitration of disputes lies within the responsibilities of Sera's priests, so you still have that as a means of retaining power and perhaps regaining and spreading power. The folk of the Western Reaches accepted Sera's perfect symmetry in the hope that its priests might bring an end to disputes over claims and fortunes in the land. Before any guilds were formed, and while the domain rulers could concern themselves with little more than external defenses, the temples offered a place where any dispute could be settled peacefully. And Sera does continue to be worshipped throughout Brechtur, but mostly as a household or urban goddess. In the western reaches, her temple still holds some of the power they once did, but they're now looked upon as advisors rather than arbitrators. So again, you can already see the loss of influence there. Still, with a strong political leader and some careful political backing, the extensive temple holdings of the Perfect Symmetry could reawaken the glorious days of old. And I think that's really the simplest adventure hook and campaign hook here as far as this particular realm is concerned, certainly working hand in hand with some of the domains where it's strongest. So, you've got quite a bit in Danagau, Darren, and then a little bit in Weirich, as we've covered. And ironically, your biggest holding is in Weirich. And again, just making sure here. It's hard to see that where the 4 is. Yep, so you got your 4 over there. So plenty of work to do in expanding it. Again, you got a decent amount of resources to start with, so it really just depends on how you want to start the campaign as far as, are you taking on the role of Daryl Volcairn and his, adventuring focus. Something, again, I think, whether it's from the DM or some other factors have to, I think, at some point force him to lay back on or lay off the adventuring a little bit, focus more on the actual running of the domain. So perhaps some sort of larger existential threat will force that. Who knows? Or could perhaps be something discovered on some sort of adventure, and that leads to maybe giving that up or focusing on, again, more focus on running the realm itself, or not, I shouldn't say realm, focusing on running the temple itself. Now, there are some things in some of the supplements that, again, it's going to be a while before we get to those. One of the ones, I think it's in the book of Priestcraft, ironically enough, some of the other just major religious relics that are out there as far as adventuring goes, and one of those is something that belongs to the faith of Sera. So that could be something, again, maybe some sort of grand final quest to recover that and reawaken the glory of the temple. It could even be perhaps rumors planted that particular artifact has been sighted or recently seen, and maybe, there's this big quest to then recover it. And, maybe as a impetus there, perhaps a rival sect of Sera worshippers. Yeah, I think in Cariel we saw that there's a pretty strong temple there, also worshiping Sera. So perhaps sort of some, the threat of a rival sect recovering it and gaining glory outside of Birthright versus, this former glorious church losing out on that. That could be kind of like a final, death knell as far as influence goes. So perhaps really focusing on one, again, final grand quest or adventure, recovering that, bringing it back, and then maybe that leads to some sort of reawakening of the domain here. So pretty cool stuff, and again, plenty of potential as well. So, but let us know your thoughts if you've actually run Sera's Perfect Symmetry or had dealings with them in your campaigns and how that was approached. Love to hear from you guys. So be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And again, if you want to see videos like this one early, be sure to check us out on Patreon. Any support levels there, and you get to see a lot of these type of videos and some exclusive Birthright content that you'll only find there, and among other content that we cover. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.